Hello, everybody, and welcome to the United Stand. It's transfer latest with FABRIZIO Romano. How are you doing, FABRIZIO?
Hello, my friend. All good, all good. Thank you for the invitation. As always, it's a pleasure to be here.
Good. We've got lots to get into, but there's two things I wanted to ask you about. First of all, there is, I think it was ESPN maybe talking about it this morning, saying that Manchester United may have already said to Ten Hag that it's evolution, not revolution, and there might not be a lot of money to spend this summer. Rangnick's mentioned that we need a whole new team, which I don't think he's wrong about. There's also been people saying it will probably be about 100 to 150 million, and then supplemented by, if they can sell people, that might push it up. What are you hearing around United and activity this summer at the moment? Do you expect a lot of incomings? Do you think they will have money to spend for Ten Hag, or do you think it might be a bit of a tighter summer?
I'm sure they will have money to spend because for Erik Ten Hag, it was one of priorities to make sure that he was able to start this rebuilding of Manchester United. It doesn't mean that it will take one transfer window to complete the whole rebuilding. Of course, it will take time, and that's why he will have a long-term contract. But he wanted to make sure to have enough money to start this process because it was really important to him to have this possibility. At the same point, I don't have any clear information on the budget. You know that I don't want to lie to people and saying that precisely will be 150 or 115 or 120 million euros. But at the same point, I can tell you that the answers I'm receiving is that what has been mentioned, so 150 million pounds, maybe something like that, could be something realistic. But then at the end, it always depends on the market, on the possibilities you have. It always depends on the outgoings. It's really important for Manchester United. We know that there are many players living on a free, but let's see what happens with players who could be available on the market and ready to be sold. But it depends on the proposal. So there are many factors. And that's why I don't want to mention exactly how much will be the budget. But I'm sure that will be enough money to start this process, this rebuilding, because for Erik Ten Hag, it was a key point. He was not going to accept the job in case he had no enough money to start this rebuilding process. So I'm sure that will be an interesting summer on that point.
We'll get into some individual transfer names in a moment, but just one thing I wanted to sort of run by you was that we've heard that Ralf Rangnick is not happy with some of these players. We know he will speak to Erik Ten Hag about that and potentially be saying to Erik Ten Hag, these players haven't played well for me. I wouldn't trust them next season. We know Pogba, Cavani, Lingard will go because they're out of contract. But there was, I was mentioning it on our morning show that some people are putting names like Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire out there as names that Ralf Rangnick sees as toxic and not trusting. Now, I wanted to ask you, because I've spoken to people, and look, I don't necessarily think that Maguire's had a good season, but I've always heard that Maguire and Luke Shaw specifically, and Bruno Fernandez, are players that Ralf Rangnick trusts because he picks them all the time. They're certainly not players that he's going to tell Ten Hag to sell because they're in the toxic gang. I don't know what you can tell us about the dressing room unrest.
No, I have the same information on these players. So I think that Maguire and Shaw are not mentioned like toxic players, and same for Bruno Fernandez. That is absolutely the most positive guy to have into the dressing room. Maybe it's not been an amazing season for him. It's not an easy period, but at the same point, you can't doubt Bruno Fernandes. This is my point as a player, but even as a guy, because he's always been a really good guy into the dressing room, a positive guy. So I don't see a problem with these players. But for sure, there is a problem into the dressing room. This is not a secret. I'm not the first one to say that, and this is the reality. But not just for Ralf Rangnick. Even between players, they know that there are some players that are just creating a problem into the club because they're not performing at the best level, because they're not focusing on Man United, because maybe they're already thinking of the future. I can't mention the players you said because I think it's not Maguire, it's not Luke Shaw, and it's 100% not Bruno. But at the same point, I think this rebuilding is not just on a technical point of view, because you say, okay, Rangnick saying to Ten Hag, maybe they're not performing, okay, but it's not just a technical point of view. It's even about the approach of these players on the training ground, in the training sessions. There are many factors to rebuilding. And that's why I think this conversation between Ten Hag and Ralf Rangnick will be really important. Man United need different level of players, of course, but even different level of atmosphere into the dressing room. This is something that is really important. I want to mention, because he's one of my favorite managers, but what Antonio Conte did with Tottenham, I don't know if he will get Champions League or not, but how he changed the atmosphere into the dressing room, that's what you need. It's not just on a technical point of view. Of course, Man United need top players for their rebuilding, but they need a different atmosphere. The real group, the spirit into the group has to be different. This is the message of Ralf Rangnick. This is what he will say to Erik ten Hag. It's about the spirit and the technical point of view. It will be up to ten Hag with his ideas, with his system, with his tactics, but the energy into the dressing room has to be something completely different. This is the real priority for Man United.
Definitely. Just for people are in the chat putting all sorts of names there. We will mention them, but one final thing before we talk about transfer names: Paul Mitchell, Ralf Rangnick. What are the chances that Ralf Rangnick and Paul Mitchell are Manchester United employees at the start of next season with Erik ten Hag? We're hearing from David Ornstein that the chances are that Rangnick will stay as a consultant and that he has recommended Paul Mitchell. This is something that would really be a massive step forward in your world in recruitment. This would make Man United big players if they can keep Rangnick and bring Mitchell in. Do you think that's likely?
I think there are possibilities. I can't say that it's close, but we always say even here that the relationship between Ralf Rangnick and Paul Mitchell is great. They have really a great relationship since long time. They know each other since many years. So I'm sure that what David reported, that he's suggesting this possibility of Paul Mitchell to Manchester United board, is something correct, because I'm sure that the relationship is great. And he wants Ralf Rangnick to make sure that in case he stays, people into the club have to be ready for Manchester United rebuilding. And of course, Erik ten Hag is the right person to do it as a manager, but they need people into the board with this kind of knowledge to be ready to rebuild Manchester United, and Paul Mitchell would be absolutely perfect. Why I say that I'm not sure yet? Because there are many clubs interested in Paul Mitchell. Some of the groups interested in buying Chelsea are keeping his name in the list as a possibility for Chelsea in case they will be able to buy the club. So that's why it's still an open situation, but I'm sure that the relationship with Rangnick could be a factor. And I'm also sure that Rangnick has huge chances to stay at Man United. He was keeping it open in the last press conference, but what I've always been told is that Ralf Rangnick has been involved in the process to appoint Erik ten Hag. He was giving for his opinion, and it was absolutely positive on Erik ten Hag. He wanted Erik ten Hag as priority for Man United, and so I think that Erik ten Hag will be smart enough to say that, okay, we need a person like Ralf Rangnick to start this process of rebuilding at Manchester United.
We'll move on to some transfers now. We'll give people in the chat some of the topics they want. I'll whiz through some of these, but one of the ones that caught my eye today was Darwin Nunez and Benfica apparently wanting 130 million euros. That's nearly double what I would have thought they would be asking, maybe 60, 70 million. What is the latest on Nunez? Because if it's 130 million euros, he's probably going to stay at Benfica because there's not many people going to pay that.
I think he's not going to stay at Benfica 100%. The intention of the player is to leave, and that's why he has a new agent really close to Argumendes. So the plan is really clear. And from what I'm told, he's not under 30 million euros for Darwin Nunez. The price would be around 80, maybe could be 85, 90 if he keeps scoring at the end of the season. But the price has always been between 75 and 80 million euros. So I don't see this price to go around 130 million euros. It would be crazy, even because they know that the player wants to go. The player wants to try a new experience. So I will keep the situation open for Darwin Nunez. For sure, he's a player who's been discussed internally at Manchester United since February, even before they knew about Erik ten Hag 100% sure as new manager. They always discussed his name internally. They need a young, fresh, modern striker, and so that's why the name has always been in the list. Now let's see about the price, because it's important to understand. We mentioned the budget, how much Man United want to invest on the striker, how important that will be for Erik ten Hag. But I'm sure that Darwin Nunez is on the list for Man United. I'm also sure he's on the list of many other clubs, and so it's not going to be an easy race. It's not going to be an easy negotiation with Benfica. We know that the relationship with Jorge Mendes is pretty good for Manchester United since a long time, so it could be a factor. But at the same point, it's still an open situation, and it's not the only name discussed internally, because, for example, Richarlison is another player that they already discussed into the club. Now it's time to decide together with Erik ten Hag. It will take some weeks, but then we will enter into the real transfer market and we will have final answers.
Yeah, I did have it on the list to ask you about Richarlison, but I if we buy him, we buy him. But I really, really, really hope we don't get him, because I find him quite a difficult player to enjoy as an Everton player. He spends a lot of time on the ground. But just before we move on, Ronaldo, where we are at the moment with Ronaldo, chances of staying at United are looking good, but if an offer comes in from somewhere, I suppose they'd have to pay a massive. Well, United would want a fee, wouldn't they? And his wages are very big.
Sure, United won't give Cristiano a free. 100%, even because they paid in the summer to Juventus. It was not a crazy fee because it was around 20 million euros with some add-ons, but they would ask for a fee. But at the same point, the answer I'm receiving on Ronaldo's side is always the same, that Cristiano at the moment made no communication to leave the club. He still not had a direct conversation with Erik ten Hag. So we are not yet in the process like saying Erik ten Hag told him what he wants to do, or Cristiano to Erik ten Hag. He's still really quiet around Cristiano. I really hope that Cristiano will stay, honestly, as my opinion, because at the moment around Cristiano, United on this Ronaldo topic is really quiet. But my opinion is it will be important for Erik ten Hag to have a leader like Cristiano into the dressing room. You can't change everything in the same summer, because you're going to change the manager. You're going to have a change into the board with Rangnick staying as consultant. Let's see what happens with Paul Mitchell or director of football. Then to change many players, many will leave on a free, many players will arrive. And, leader like Cristiano could be an important point for Manchester United. So I feel that they know how important it will be to keep Cristiano, even if he's not playing 38 games per season, because it's normal to have Cristiano on a different level now. He's not so young, and so he's always a fantastic player. But at the moment, the situation around Cristiano is still really quiet. They're not expecting any big news in the coming days. They're expecting Cristiano to be professional and quiet till the end of the season, and then they're waiting for Erik ten Hag to have a direct conversation with him. But at the moment, no one from United told Cristiano, you have to go and leave the club, or same from Cristiano's side saying, I want to leave. So it's still really quiet.
Yeah, and on to centre-backs. We've mentioned Akanji, or you mentioned Akanji a couple of months ago, but everything at the moment seems to be around Timber from Ajax, or even Pau Torres has been mentioned, which is, I find that quite surprising, because I would have thought Pau Torres would be probably a little bit too expensive, a little bit too high profile for Manchester United. Is Timber more likely, or do you think Torres could become an option for Manchester United, or do you think Akanji's still in the race? Where are we with centre-backs?
Pau Torres has always been highly rated by Manchester United. Last summer too, before they signed Varane, he was one of the names in the list together with Koundé. It was Koundé, Varane, and Pau Torres. Now I'm sure that Pau Torres is still in the list for Manchester United and Manchester City, because both clubs are following him. Both clubs are in contact with people close to the player, with agents. So at the moment, it's still something quiet. It's still not advanced. But Pau Torres will be a player that Manchester United will follow as a possibility in the coming weeks. Akanji, that will be an opportunity on the market, because at the moment he has no agreement with Borussia Dortmund to extend his contract. He's expiring next year, and so that's why it could be a good price for the player. And price will be a really important point. The fee for these players will be really important, because as we mentioned, Man United can't pay 100 million euros for every single signing they're going to do in the summer. So they need to have some smart transfer in the summer, and Pau Torres, Akanji could be some interesting one. And then I'm really curious to see what happens with the other names, because Timber is a player that, of course, is linked because of Ten Hag. The relationship between Ten Hag and Timber is fantastic, and I'm sure that Ten Hag considers Timber the player ready to make the next step. So ready to maybe leave Ajax and have a top club to join in the summer. I'm sure that he already discussed with Manchester United of Timber, because he's one of the players that he would love. But at the moment, there is no negotiation yet between clubs, and I think for Manchester United, it's now important to keep Ajax quiet. They are fighting for Eredivisie. So if something has to happen, it will be in some weeks and not now. But for sure, Timber is a player that is really highly rated by Erik ten Hag, and we know the power he will have on the market. So let's see, but it will be a really interesting one for United. I want to keep these three names because nothing has been decided yet. They didn't have a meeting like saying, okay, let's go on this player. They're still exploring the market together, even with Ralf Rangnick, because what Rangnick said in the conference is the truth. He already mentioned some of the names, and Akanji is one of these names. He's playing in the Bundesliga. He knows him so well. So that's why it's still open, and then they will make the decision with Erik ten Hag.
So Rudiger's out. He's off to Real Madrid, but Akanji, Torres and Timber still remain possibilities at centre-back.
Rudiger is out 100%. Yes. It was never close. Man United made a proposal to Tony Rudiger, but it was never close.
Interesting there. Yeah, it's a shame. He's a good player, but I thought it was a hard sell for United, to be honest, to go from Chelsea to United. On the midfield front, this is probably every Man United fan's most important position, because we've needed a holding midfielder for so long. Some would say we might go for two now, but West Ham again, and I personally think West Ham are probably doing what Benfica's doing, trying to push the price up, saying they want 130 million, but they're adamant they're going to keep him. We've heard about Calvin Phillips, Lema at Leipzig, although I feel he's more box to box. Where do you think United are on that position? Because this is where I bring De Jong in. Again, I don't know where this De Jong story is coming through. I wanted to ask you about it. To me, I just can't see that happening. It'd be very expensive. But where do you feel Man United are on that midfield position now? Because De Jong and Rice hard to get, very expensive. Phillips maybe. You know, what you're hearing on that one, Fabrizio?
Oh, they would love Ten Hag. They would love Ten Hag, and they, as Man United, would love to have De Jong at the club. But at the moment, for Barcelona, there is Xavi, who is fighting to keep the player because he wants De Jong to be a key player for many, many years in Barcelona, as he stated in public. So it's not a secret. He wants De Jong to stay, and Ten Hag would love to have Frankie De Jong at the club, but it's not going to be an easy negotiation. And from what I'm told, Frankie De Jong wants to play Champions League football. It's a priority for him. So that's why it's going to be complicated for Man United in the summer.
That's his out then.
Yeah, let's see what happens. But I think it's not going to be easy to sign Frankie De Jong. For sure, they will love him, but it's really complicated with Xavi in particular. He's fighting to keep the player. And then the other names you mentioned, Declan Rice will not sign a new deal at West Ham. I'm sure of what I reported. The third proposal has been turned down by Declan Rice. He has no plan to sign a new deal. But we have to respect, as I always say, the situation with West Ham. They want to keep the player. They are not in a rush with his contract. He's out of contract in 2024. They have an option till 2025. And so that's why for Declan Rice, they are convinced, but really convinced, that Declan Rice will stay for one more season. So let's see what happens in the coming weeks. But at the moment on West Ham side, they say the player is untouchable, or they have to pay £150 million. So you know how complicated it will be for Man United. It would mean big part, if not the whole, but big part of the budget on Declan Rice. But he's always been top of the list for Man United. So let's see, because in the market now it's still April, so it's still early, and we have to keep everything open for this kind of big names. Phillips would be the possible solution with a normal fee, not a crazy fee. He's a player that is appreciated by Man United board, so it could be a possibility, but still not discussed with Erik ten Hag. So it's a name that is in Manchester United list, appreciated by Ralf Rangnick, I'm told, but still not approved by Erik ten Hag, and so that's why we have to wait on him.
And Tchouaméni, I think last week it looked like it was drifting away from a Premier League move, maybe Real Madrid. Is he still somebody that we spoke about before, and United have never really been in for him, even though he's been mentioned, even last summer? So
yes, last summer was mentioned, and the answer from United was really clear. He's not a target. He's not a player that we are targeting for last summer. Let's see this summer what happens. The problem is the price, because last summer you needed maybe 40-50 million for Tchouaméni. This summer I think it will be around 70, 80, maybe 90 million euros, because Monaco are doing great with him. He's doing fantastic with Monaco and with the French national team. And so it's not going to be an easy negotiation. So I'm sure that he's a player that is followed by many clubs. Chelsea were following him with a big relationship with his agent. It's the same agent of Koundé. So it was normal for Chelsea to have a very good relationship. Real Madrid are following him. Paris Saint-Germain are in the race too. So the competition is the problem on that one. And I think Man United will need to make a decision where they want to spend big money, if on the striker, if on a centre-back, or if on the midfielder, because it's really important to understand for the budget what will be the real priority for Ten Hag.
Yeah, because I suppose there are other options in the midfield. We mentioned Ruben Neves last year. He would probably be more reasonably priced. Tielemans is an option as well. He could be available with 1 year left on his contract. So there are potentially cheaper options out there. Just a couple of players potentially on the outgoings. We've heard this morning that Marcus Rashford's apparently, well, it's a paper story. It's not from Marcus Rashford, that he's accepted he's not part of the plans under Rangnick. He's been on the bench a lot, but he's looking forward to playing under Ten Hag. But there is interest in him from Barcelona and Liverpool and other clubs. I've never thought for 1 minute Rashford's going to leave this football club, Manchester United. Do you have that feeling that it is a possibility?
No, he wants to speak with Erik ten Hag, I'm told. He wants to discuss directly with him and understand the plan. So at the moment, he is not planning to leave, and he's not planning to change. He wants to speak with the manager because he was absolutely not happy with Ralf Rangnick in time, and so that's why he wanted to make sure that his future will be protected. But at the same point, he wants to discuss with Erik ten Hag. Let me say my opinion. I think Erik ten Hag is a really smart man. He knows how to deal with talents and talented players. And I think Marcus Rashford has a lot of potential. He's kind of perfect player to have a second life with and under Erik ten Hag. So that's why I think he would have good chances to stay. Let's remind that they have an option into his contract to extend for a further season. So they are not desperate to extend the contract right now. I see a lot of stories on his contract, but he's under contract. He's under contract till 2023 with an option till 2024, and that's why Man United are really not desperate. They're really quiet. But this conversation between Ten Hag and Rashford will be important.
We also heard today from a UK outlet about Ten Hag not being convinced about David De Gea. Now, we have a weird situation in the United fan base. David De Gea is a fantastic player. He's player of the year, but some United fans do not like his distribution. I mean, the fact that Ten Hag may well have said he doesn't rate De Gea, but he'll keep him for a year. But then there's a contract situation with David De Gea. I've never heard that United are looking to move David De Gea on, but goalkeeper this summer, David De Gea, new contract. What do you think about that?
I heard that they want to extend the contract of De Gea. This is a plan of the board since a long time. And my personal opinion is if you want to change also David De Gea, you need to change everything. Maybe you need to change Old Trafford too, because maybe the only thing working was David De Gea this season. So I think to restart from David De Gea, even as a leader, you need some player who knows the atmosphere, who knows the fans, who knows how to deal with the atmosphere around the team is important. You can't change everything. You need to change many things into this club, into this team, but you need to restart from some leaders. You need some leaders, and David De Gea is a leader. Maybe he's not a leader that is acting like a leader, but he's a leader in the dressing room. He's one of the most respectful players, and so that's why I see Manchester United intention to continue with him, even because his salary is huge. And so for other clubs around Europe, it's not easy to sign De Gea with his age with a really important salary. I'm told that they want to discuss with him on a new contract, so I think that De Gea will be part of the plan. Let's see what Ten Hag will say once he will be at the club. But I really think that they want to continue in their negotiations with De Gea to extend the contract.
And then one final one, just a little outside the box, Christian Eriksen for free, Manchester United this summer. Do you feel that's a possibility? He's had a great renaissance at Brentford.
At the moment, nothing advanced, but he's not advanced with any club, let me say, because Christian Eriksen, matter of respect for Brentford, he wants to wait till the end of the season before making any decision. I'm told that Tottenham had some conversation with people close to him, same for Leicester. So many clubs are moving around Christian Eriksen. For Manchester United, it's still something quiet. But you know that Erik ten Hag knows his quality. He's kind of Ajax-style player, and so it could be really interesting to see him as a target. But at the moment, still nothing like advanced or close. Let's see what happens in the coming weeks. It would be fantastic, honestly, to see Christian Eriksen playing for a top club like Man United.
We will see. Fabrizio, we've got through a lot there in a short period of time, but as ever, I'm very grateful for you popping on, as is everyone in the chat, and I hope you have a good week ahead of you.
Thank you. Thanks as always, and see you soon. Ciao.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Speak to you later. Fast fire there. So much to get through just before we cap off, because I've got to go and play FIFA on Twitch. Big games in my Man United career mode. But interesting, really interesting, because we've had some stories. We tend to get a lot of stories in the UK on a Monday morning, if you're not in the UK. So I wanted to put a lot of those stories to Fabrizio, and I think a lot of them have been... Well, depends who you believe, but Fabrizio's got very good contacts in the game, and as everybody knows, and this whole Darwin Nunez for 130 million euros, not true. It's just not, is it? You know, I can say that, but it's better if it comes from Fabrizio. The story I was talking about this morning about, you know, Rangnick putting Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire and Bruno Fernandez on his toxic list. It's just not true. They're not playing well, but they're not on Rangnick's toxic list. The transfer value, I think, was very interesting. We've been talking about it being 150 million. Fabrizio said himself that, look, and I think this is the most important thing, when people are trying to figure out how much money Man United have got to spend today, this summer, listen to what Fabrizio said there, and it's very logical. The reason Ten Hag took a bit of time on his contract is because he wanted to make sure that if he was going to sign up for this job, there was a rebuild budget there was control for him to do that, and a big part of that is the money. So, and Fabrizio himself said 150 million seems about right. So, you know, we have been talking about that. I think I did a video a couple of weeks ago saying I think it will be about 150 million based on, and if we can sell some more players, maybe it goes up a bit, but 150 million. Hi Mark, any news on Konrad Laimer from Leipzig, plus which way players are leaving the summer? I'm going to do a video on leaving players in the summer, Mohammed, a little bit later in the week, but on Konrad Laimer, he's at Leipzig. Rangnick, 1 year left on his contract. I don't think you can rule it out. Welcome to the Members Club, Matt Tweed. Thank you very much for joining and supporting the channel. You can do that by clicking the join button. Paul Mitchell, that's certainly still running. We had it from David Ornstein this morning, Fabrizio Romano this afternoon, also adding an important bit in that Chelsea may well be interested if they get the right owners. So Paul Mitchell, Ralf Rangnick at the club next summer, still a possibility. And also, yeah, Pau Torres is in the argument now, isn't he? Centre back. It looks like it's going to be Akanji, Timber, or Pau Torres. All offer very different things. Akanji offers a cheap option. Timber offers a young option. Pau Torres probably the better, but the most expensive option there as well. Nunez very much in the race. CDM looks difficult. De Jong is just a paper story. It's not. There's no reality to that at the moment. Rice looks very, very expensive. Phillips is someone United like, but maybe Ten Hag hasn't given that his sign-off yet. Tchouaméni, United don't look like they're even in the race for him. Rashford's obviously going to stay. I don't know where this story from Rashford. I feel like the Rashford, we had this a few weeks ago when he got subbed off after, when he played badly in the Manchester derby, and apparently his phone's ringing off with offers. And we've had it again today, another one from Manchester Evening News. Barcelona and Liverpool are interested in Rashford. They're bloody well not. Nobody's interested in Rashford because Rashford's not interested in leaving. Until Rashford puts a bloody transfer request in, which he won't. I mean, Marcus Rashford off the pitch is a huge superstar off the pitch. And a lot of that is fed by the fact that he plays for Man United. He does not want to leave Manchester United. He's been here since he's a kid. I think what's going on here is it's that lots of players have got contacts in the press and stories get put out for different reasons. And I think that this is about Rashford positioning himself for a new contract. I don't think Rashford's going to leave. And I do agree with what Fabrizio said, and I've said it myself. There is still a player there that Rangnick and that Ten Hag may well want to look at next year. So Rashford will be here for another year, 100%. And he ain't going to put a transfer request in, and United aren't going to sell him. So, yeah, I don't for 1 minute think he's going to go anywhere either. And yeah, I think we could have covered everything that we needed to cover there. There is going to be a budget of about 150 million quid. There is a very big good chance that we'll get Paul Mitchell and Rangnick will stay here next year. And the centre back situation looks interesting. Torres, Akanji, or Timber, take your pick. Nunez was still in the race. I mean, I didn't like the mention of Richarlison. I've got to be honest. Fabrizio's mentioned it before, and he mentioned it again unprompted. I do not like the idea of Richarlison. Personally, I just don't like the player. I find his attitude. We've had a season where we've questioned the attitude of a lot of players, and there's just something about Richarlison. I've never liked his attitude. Obviously, he's a decent player, but I just don't feel he's the right player to bring to Manchester United. And also, Everton would want a lot of money for him. I mean, if you're saying Richarlison for 35 million, I'd say, oh, I might go for that. But Richarlison for anything over 60 million, and I'm like, I don't fancy that at all, really. Do you think Erik Ten Hag's demands are in his contract or verbally agreed? United have been known for making empty promises. Oh, it'll be in his contract, Duncan, 100%. There's no way you're going to take United's word on anything. You'd have to have it in. You'd have to have it in writing, definitely. But anyway, that's where we are. Watch the video back if you've tuned in a little bit later, because I've probably missed some bits. But we did get updates on De Jong, on Nunez, on the centre back situation, on the CDM, on the transfer budget, on the dressing room, on Mitchell as well, on De Gea as well. Also on De Gea. I mean, United. I mean, again. Basically, there was an article this afternoon that said Nunez is going out for 130 million. That United might not have a lot to spend, that De Gea could be a player that we're looking to move on, that Rashford's could be looking to move on as well. I mean, basically, it's just been blown apart as a load of crap, hasn't it, to be honest with you? But there you go. That's why we ask the questions. Leeds versus Palace, watch along tonight, says Leo. No, I think we'll just do the standard 8 o'clock show tonight. 8 o'clock, we'll be back on the channel. But in about 5-10 minutes, I'm going to be live on Twitch. Got a big day on the United career mode. And you can join me on there if that's your sort of thing. Mark, please ask about De Ligt and Kamara. Avinash, I don't ask every question we get asked because some of them will be waste of times. We're not in for De Ligt. He's a Mino Raiola client, and we're not in for De Ligt. Kamara, we were offered in January, and the club said no. So at the moment, we're not in for De Ligt, and we're not in for Kamara. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. I'll join Goldbridge TV on Twitch. I'll be tweeting it out at Mark Goldbridge. We'll be back at 8 o'clock tonight. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. A fast fire update. We're not in for Dybala either, Ronnie. Thanks for watching. I'll speak to you all in a bit.